All right. Good morning, everybody. We're so glad that you are joining us today for our Volunteer Management Roundtable. My name is Jovita Woodrich, and I am the Volunteer Services Director for Volunteer Florida. I know some of you were participating yesterday in the convening. We hope that you had a great experience with just some really timely content from some fantastic speakers. We did have a couple of technical difficulties in a few of the sessions, as is customary with technology. We've got a couple of things I think that we've ironed the kinks out about today, so we're really glad about that. Hopefully a couple of those little hiccups will run more smoothly today. So what we wanted to do with this roundtable is give you all an opportunity to hear from people in the industry that you may not normally hear from. So we have a private organization, Merit, that has just a really neat way of tracking and connecting nonprofits, nonprofit work and volunteer work that we're going to hear about. Hearing from the Duke Energy Foundation as well, and they are the philanthropic and volunteering arm of Duke Energy Company. And then the Florida State University, which is where I did my graduate degree, their Center for Leadership and Social Change, thinking about college students and their the ways that they support the community, the opportunities that they have to serve, kind of what connects them to the community when it comes to service learning and so on. We're going to hear some about that. So really looking forward to this. If you all have any questions at any time, if you would put them in the chat box, the Q&A box, and we will certainly try to get to as many of those as we can as we have this conversation over the next hour or so. So what I'm going to do is have a few, each of our panelists spend a few minutes talking about themselves. We would love to just hear about their work, about the organization that you each work for, kind of some details about it, especially because some of the angles that you all are coming from might be a little unique, for example, with Merit, Lauren. So we would love to hear more detail from you all about that. So Lauren, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much. I should say good morning, Hurricane Zeta warriors down here in Florida. I cannot believe we are experiencing yet another storm, and I'm so grateful that all of you have come in out of the field for a few minutes to participate in this amazing program from Volunteer Florida. Thank you for inviting Merit, and we are honored to be here and to present with my co-panelists. Again, my name is Lauren Bonica, and I'm the Emergency Services Industry Manager for Merit, which is a private technology company that can help support and track all your hours, your credentials, and the amazing work that you do. I live to serve. I believe that that's what I've been put on this earth to do. I'm honored to have an opportunity in Florida to serve by your side, previously with Collier County Emergency Management and some of the phenomenal nonprofits and leadership in Collier County, especially our teams out in Immokalee with our migrant and seasonal farm worker community. I'm an active volunteer with Naples Pride. So we want to make sure that whatever work we do, our volunteer work that we do, is filled with inclusivity. We're helping all of our population, and most importantly, we stay true to the work that we are trying to do for ourselves. There is nothing I can say to help motivate you more, because you are already that ready. You're already that type of person, and I'm so honored to get a chance to serve by your side. Volunteer-wise, I come from New Jersey. It's a little state up north that some of you might be familiar with. And I served with Lawrenceville Fire Company for 22 years, both as a volunteer firefighter and currently serving there as well. Tom's River Avian Care, which is a wild bird rehabilitation for almost 40 years now, and several other environmental backgrounds. So when it comes to service, whatever your passion in life is, you can stretch that out through everything. But every now and then you have to leave, you got to put the hose down, you got to leave the trails and the environment, and you've got to get into the business side to help elevate the volunteer work you're doing. And that's what I'm doing with Merit right now. Merits.com is our website. We're going to talk all about it in a little bit after I'm done introducing ourselves, but we're really there to be a support system for you. And please keep that in mind and email us or call us when you're feeling like, I don't know how to credential, I don't know how to issue a certificate, and I don't know how to check in and track my hours. You now have me and this phenomenal team throughout the nation to help you get there. So I bid you again a great good morning. Finally, we meet for the first time, for the last time. And as Merritt likes to say, we are all friends. We just didn't know it yet. So it's great to meet my new volunteer friends. Thank you for a chance to say good morning.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. We really appreciate all of your service in terms of working in the fire department and in emergency management settings. I know you've done some really powerful, important partnership and collaborative work to make sure that our communities are safe and healthy and preserved. And so we really appreciate all of that work, especially just right here in our state. So thank you for that. And I am going to next take it over to Joy. I'm sorry, Dr. Joy. And and ask Joy to share a little bit about herself.
Good morning. Joy is fine, I promise. Joy Phillips, I have the honor of serving as the director for the Center for Leadership and Social Change at Florida State University. Our office does a lot, and so I'll break it down into sort of what we call 3 functional areas that we support. So the first is what we call identity development. For a lot of campus, it is similar to a equity or inclusion diversity office. It is important for us that we are talking to our students about who they are and what that means for them. And so we do that through those programs. We also do leadership development and leadership engagement on campus. And so as we're helping students understand who they are, we know that that informs what that means for them in their leadership and who they are as leaders, right? And so we have programs that focus on that. And then we also have our community engagement, which is our traditional, some of our more traditional community service and learning, community partner development programs that come out of our office as well. And as we are helping students understand who they are, their leadership style, their leadership capacity, we also know that those 2 things then impact the way that they show up in communities and where they choose to serve, how they choose to serve, why they choose to serve. And so those 3 functional areas for us work really well together as we are preparing our students to be good citizens once they leave the university. I've been at the center for about 14 years, much longer than I anticipated being at Florida State or at the center, and got my start working at the center specifically in community engagement work. And so it is interesting in my work now as the director that the lens that I bring to all of our work is community centered and community focused. I work specifically with our mentoring programs in the area, as well as with our faculty around service learning and community partnership development. So I did that for a number of years before being able to transition more into the organization to where I am now as the director. So I'm excited to be with you all this morning. I love talking about community engagement and our students, and so I'm excited for this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joy. Lauren, I'm going to go back to you real quickly. Go ahead and give us more detail about Merit and what you all do, and then very specifically what the benefit would be for, let's say, a nonprofit or a government entity that mobilizes volunteers.
Thank you so much. And again, Dr. Joy, it's an honor to present with you. And I can't wait to talk after, which is like the greatest thing about these presentations together. Right. Oh, so wonderful. So let's just skip past the fancy stuff. Everyone that volunteers each and every day has a value to their hour. Most volunteer hours are $27.20. We don't do it for the money. We don't do it for the free yacht on the weekend. None of us are getting that. We do it out of what our hearts and our minds desire to do to serve others. However, if you can track your hours, and if you, each one of you, even participating in this seminar in the past few days, added up your hours. Now you're not going to see me do math because that is not one of the things that Lauren has the ability up here. But if you tracked all your hours just for participating in this, you would be able to begin to start bringing money back to your agency. If any of you have competed for a grant, and we know we all have, because the ability to get those nice checks and donations we used to get back in the old days, things have changed right now. It's not like that. Now we have the chance to compete for these local, federal, and state grants. They're going to ask you for what's called a soft match. That's funny money, if you will. And Merit is a program, an app that you can put right on your cell phone. So when Lauren starts at distributing food kits today, I log in, I said I started volunteering. I'm going to do that for 7 sweaty hours because we're in Florida, and then I'm going to end it. And all that gets tracked. And if you're in charge of coordinating your volunteers, you're in charge of your agency, you lose sight of that. You can't keep all those pieces of paper. You can't keep track of all that. But to track your hours through an app, and that's only one of the few things that we can do. One of the most important pieces of Merit, besides the amazing people, they're an emergency services division, kind of with a like a hang 10 attitude. They're very advanced thinking, but they're full of listening to the customers. So you're helping us build this better program. Right now, we work heavily with the CERT teams throughout the nation, and we would be lost without CERT. So whether you're in Florida CERT, California, New Jersey, we need you. I think of the emergency that Wisconsin is going through right now with the increased COVID numbers. And the last time I checked, and we now have data, 84% of hospital beds were filled. Merit can be used to track the credentials of medical professionals, nurses, doctors, physicians assistants, language support teams, care facilities, mental health, behavioral health, rescue dogs, and therapy dogs. We can register you, and then Merit gives you the ability to move seamlessly throughout the states, cross-jurisdictionally, and it's kind of brings that United States down into one giant state of service. Because now you're not like, well, I'm in Florida, I can only work in Florida. No, Wisconsin needs us. So if we can build these incident management teams, we can track, oh wait, Lauren is good at doing this, this, and this. Let's deploy her over to Wisconsin. Now, as everyone knows, I want us to get friendly mail. We recognize working with state EOCs and the incident commander of the divisions and the IMTs and being EMAC credentialed. Yes. So the logistics of emergency services, absolutely. But ask yourself today, did you sign in when you started volunteering on a piece of paper? Did you check in with an app? And we're not just an app and we disappear. You will call and get this amazing customer success team that believes in you. We are nothing without our people. And that is something that is such an honor to work with. And I think resonates and connects so heavily with so many of our friends that are on the phone and so many of the people that we serve. So one real true example I would like to use is during Hurricane Irma, when working in Collier County in Immokalee. After the storm, we had 63 nonprofits come to Immokalee, self-deployed, spontaneous volunteers, as we all like to call them. It's a nice name. Great big hearts of gold. But if you're trying to manage 63 nonprofits and all of their teams, how do you know that they're truly credentialed to be there? If someone says they're a behavioral health expert, well, what do they have to show? Are they showing you a piece of paper? If you, as the incident commander and the nonprofit in charge of that area, have that on your phone that says only people with ABC credential, only people with PhDs, only people that are certified food distribution can come, you can help support this volunteer community, which in my opinion has completely unsupported and unrepresented for all of these years. And finally, I mean, look at this program alone. We are getting proper professional and business training, and you are the ones who are making the difference in counties. The volunteer groups are leading that change, and I need to listen to all of you and learn from you. But Merit is there for you. And that's why I joined the company, is to be part of that change.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lauren. And we've got actually a flyer in the session details in the agenda about merit. And then, of course, I will be providing a little bit more information about all these organizations after we finish this up. And I'm sure any of these lovely panelists would be happy to speak with you if you have any more questions for them afterwards. So just wanted to let you know about that. There's a lot that Merit does, a lot of layers to the work that they do that isn't just emergency management, but really the technological component of being able to track hours and credentials is something that can really be a game changer for a lot of organizations. So I want to take this over to Pavita. So glad to have you today. Pavita is the Stakeholder Engagement Manager for Duke Energy, the Duke Energy Foundation. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that the foundation does around volunteerism and employment and employees.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. So good morning, everyone. My name is Pavita Prasad. As mentioned, I work with our foundation here in Florida. So I manage all of our philanthropic giving as well as all of our community involvement in the state. And what's really great about Duke Energy is that there's really a culture of volunteerism that starts from the top. Last year, for example, our 3,800 employees in Florida volunteered more than 20,000 hours in our communities in the state. And that just goes to show that our employees are really engaged in their communities. They enjoy giving back. And we have a lot of programs at Duke Energy that supports the volunteerism that our employees want to do. So we have programs that provide additional grant dollars for nonprofits that receive for nonprofits that our employees volunteer with, or if our employees volunteer a certain number of hours, then they get additional grant monies that they can donate to a nonprofit. And we also give our employees time off to volunteer. So every year our employees have 10 hours a year that they can use to volunteer on company time, in addition to what they may want to do on their own as well. So they work with their management to identify opportunities. A lot of times management will identify volunteer opportunities for teams events, as we call them. And there are additional teams for goods opportunities that we offer for our employees and managers who really want to do a team building while volunteering and doing good in their community. So it's supported from our management all the way from the top, and it's something that our employees truly embrace and enjoy doing. We call it our Duke Energy in Action program. Our volunteerism is Duke Energy in Action, and our volunteers will wear blue shirts when they volunteer, and we like to refer to it as a sea of blue. So when we have dozens of volunteers at any given event, you'll see a sea of blue. Again, it's really part of our culture on a company-wide basis, but specifically in Florida, something that is definitely near and dear to all of our hearts as Duke Energy employees. And I'm looking forward to talking more about some of our programs with you.
Great, thanks so much, Pavita. So just to you all as attendees, I just want to say, we've got somebody who is in emergency management and has a really exciting technology angle in addition to other ways in which she and Merit are connecting to communities. So there's that part to be considering for your own benefit and how that technology might be beneficial to you. And then we have Joy, who is talking about the richness of engaging college students in Tallahassee specifically. But if you can be thinking about students that are in your area and the ways in which you can help, not just, we're not just talking about recruiting students to achieve your work. We're talking about a collaborative way in which both parties kind of maximize their experience. Joy will talk about this, and the community is made better, but it really is so much more rich than can we grab and snag a college student for a semester, and are they going to show up, and are they, a lot of those stereotypes. I've had some great discussions with Joy about that reality, and that there are some disconnects and some barriers there that if they were addressed on both sides, not just the volunteer side and as a lot of younger students, but also on the nonprofit and government sector side, when they perceive and plan for engaging students. So we'll get more into that. And then, of course, with Kavita, love the work that they're doing at the Duke Energy Foundation. And, just be thinking about businesses in your community. Duke Energy is a fairly large organization, but we know that corporate social responsibility is, it really is kind of the mainstay and should be something that all businesses are engaging in. And so you can have a fairly small business in your town that may have a small employee program or may not have anything at all. And perhaps you can glean some ideas from Kavita about how to pitch to them, partnering with them to have their employees work with you. So those are just a couple of the angles that I'm hoping you guys will kind of think about as we continue. I'm going to go ahead and start with Joy. And would love to just hear some of the experiences that you've had in terms of working with nonprofits in your community, and what service learning looks like. If you can give a couple of examples or give a quick rundown.
Sure. So our approach to the work is definitely from a lens of partnership. And so what that means for us is that we will spend a lot of time sort of on the back end working with our partners, trying to sort of get a better sense of what is it that they need, what are they looking for, are there innovative things that our students could be doing that maybe we had never considered before or had not thought about. That's been really important during this time of the pandemic, as we have transitioned more to virtual service versus more face-to-face service. And so a good example that I'll use is we do a lot of work with our school systems. And so here in Tallahassee, as well as in neighboring counties. And so we actually just had a conversation with a neighboring school district at the end of last week and trying to brainstorm what virtual service could look like for their school system and for their students. What is it that teachers are noticing that students need? And then how do we leverage the resources that we have on our campus, whether it's with faculty, with student organizations, to help them meet those needs specifically. And then us thinking about then how do we then train our students and work with our faculty to be prepared, right, to provide those services and that support. And so for us, it is both pieces. It is working really closely with nonprofits and organizations about what they need, and we tend to follow up with them pretty regularly throughout the semester. I don't believe in just the one-time conversation, send students and then go. Like, we will have the conversation on the front end. I'm going to do a check-in after a few weeks, after folks have gotten started, to see how things are going. And then I'm going to keep checking in with you. Because for us, it is about ensuring that our students are providing support that is needed and that is necessary and that is helping the organization to move forward. And so by doing that, we've been able to create relationships where our organizations that we work with feel really comfortable letting us know when something maybe isn't going well, or they're having an issue with the student that we can kind of help support and intervene in. And so that's allowed us to have some really amazing partnerships and do some really great work with our students here. As we do that, we are also having conversations with our students about what does it mean to enter a community that is not yours? What does it mean to enter a space where maybe there are folks that don't look like you, talk like you, live like you? What does that mean? And we have that conversation with them on the front end before we send them out to engage in service, and then as they are engaging in the service. right? Because this is a learning space for them as well. And so we want to make sure that we are helping them to process what they see, what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, what they're hearing, help provide some context. Oftentimes they don't feel comfortable asking questions to the partner organization about what they're seeing and why they're seeing it. And so they get to come to us to say, you know what, I really don't understand why during after school, the teachers just don't take more time to do more learning. Well, we can talk about, let's talk about a school day for a teacher and what that school day looks like and when the school day starts and what teachers have to do during planning and during lunch and why that time when maybe you perceive that they aren't doing anything, they're actually preparing for the rest of the afternoon's activities. And so they need like 15 minutes to do that, right? And so that helps our students say, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, right? That's our job, right? Like our job is to help students be critical thinkers and critical consumers of information, and also to make sure that we are providing support to our community in a way that's helpful for them. Because if we're not doing work that is helpful and helps push the work forward, then for us, we that's not the work that we need to be in. Like our work is to help the community move forward in a way that is helpful and productive. And we have a lot of resources to be able to help do that. And so we're going to try to do that the best way that we can. And so we end up having a lot of conversations on both ends in both spaces to make sure that we are helping to support community in a way that is productive and not harmful.
Well, I sort of feel like volunteers of any age would need that. I don't know what we would call it, but it would be like the Center for Volunteer Support at any time in any place.
I think that's a great name.
It's so interesting because just that idea of having support outside of the volunteer work that you do so that you have a better understanding of how the nonprofit sector or the government sector works, and you can be more effective and enter into that partnership in a clearer way with expectations that are more realistic. There's a synergy there, all of that. It just, I just love the power of service learning and the work that goes into supporting students, but not, there's telling them like it is, it's not, this isn't just behave however you want in this way, or that the nonprofit is always wrong or anything like that. There's just a very clear learning trajectory there, and hopefully for the nonprofits too. So we're definitely going to come back to that, especially what you've seen on the nonprofit side. Kavita, I'm gonna come over to you. Would love to hear. I know we talked some about the varying experiences that your employees have and what they've enjoyed. So would love to hear more about what those projects have looked like, what some of their personal experiences have been, just what that community engagement has looked like for the volunteers.
Absolutely. So with our volunteers, we really, we offer a couple of different opportunities. Our employees can choose to volunteer on their own, and they can volunteer with whichever organizations they want to give their time and their resources to. We also host company-sponsored volunteer events. So we'll usually do several of those a year in various areas of our service area. So for example, in Florida, we provide electric service in 35 counties. So we try to ensure that we're visible. We have some sort of visibility in each of those different counties. And then we also have a month as a corporation that is dedicated to volunteerism. We call it Duke Energy in Action Month. And that is in May of every year, typically. And that is a month that we kind of go above and beyond, and we encourage employees to continue to volunteer in their communities. The types of events that our employees choose to volunteer with or on, they vary pretty widely from environmental to educational. I'd say that the ones that are probably the most successful are the ones where we're working hand in hand with the nonprofits from the very beginning. So for example, if there is a company sponsored event or an employee run event, for example, a Teams for Good, the employees or another representative from Duke Energy will connect in with the nonprofit, explain what we're trying to do, make sure that what we're looking to do is aligned with what the nonprofit needs are at that time. And we work from the beginning to plan it out. Duke Energy, of course, we are, in addition to having a culture of volunteerism and giving back to our communities, we're also very safety oriented as a company, naturally with our working with electricity every day. So we do a lot of pre-planning to ensure that we have the correct materials to do any volunteer projects. So for example, if we're working outside, do we have the gloves and the eye protection, and do we have water to make sure our employees are hydrated, those sorts of things. So we really pre-plan all of that in advance, and many times we'll work with the nonprofit hand in hand. And then the day of the volunteer event, we will conduct a safety briefing. All of our employees are very used to doing that. Many nonprofits are not used to it, but we will start off the day just making sure that all of our employees, all of the volunteers there know what the safety considerations are. And then it's really helpful when we have a nonprofit or a representative from the nonprofit there alongside us from the very beginning at that safety briefing, because it helps really instill to our employees who are volunteering the impact of their work that they're going to be doing for the next 4, 5, 6 hours. So when there's a representative who is, boots on the ground, works at the nonprofit every day, and is able to relay the impact of their work to our employees, that is so much more meaningful for them, is what I found. And then it's also helpful to have a representative that is available, not necessarily throughout the entire day, but somebody that we could go to if needed over the course of the volunteer project. So if there was a need that arose that was unexpected or unforeseen, we have a contact that we can go to pretty easily to work through whatever issue may have come up. And that's what we found has worked best for our employees, and where our employees are really able to connect into their community service best is when they can understand and truly appreciate the impact of the volunteerism that they're doing in the community, and are able to see some tangible results of that. Many times our volunteer or rather our nonprofit partners are able to communicate.
Sorry, just checking that one. The mic thing always messes me up. Thank you for that, Pavita. I love Joy and Pavita, both of you. There's just that heartbeat of communication being so critical in any sort of volunteerism endeavor. And, Pavita, especially talking about businesses and what they're looking for, companies, what they're looking for when it comes to employee engagement, the reality of having a nonprofit where planning is important, where safety is important, and that's pre-COVID. But knowing that kind of getting in the mind of somebody who's in a business, looking outward at nonprofits for their employees to be able to engage with, and seeing what you consider priorities and what stands out to you. So that, the safety component, and then the importance of the impact. And, I think for probably all of us, the number of hours of volunteering, like the 20,000 that Pavita talked about, and the number of volunteers, those tend to be our two primary metrics for volunteerism. But what Pavita, it sounds like you're saying, and I think is so true, is that people want to know the qualitative as well as quantitative components of their work. Like, here's how this affects the community, not just collectively we did this many hours. And that you have somebody, those are your best projects, is when that's very clear and translated to your employees, which is great. So I'm going to go back to you, Lauren. Can you give us some specifics about, let's say Jovita is with ABC nonprofit organization, and we are, you can pick our focus area. It can be the environment, arts and culture, whatever you would like. But we are really interested in that reality of soft money. And then we also we have quite a few volunteers who really are interested in beginning to kind of track the things that they've done in their life that are beneficial, that are connected to volunteerism, and so on. So walk me through, if I came to you and said, hey, we're really interested in this, what would that look like?
Oh, that's a great question, and thank you for setting it up in that real life example manner. You know, Merit is one of the only interoperable ecosystems for credentialing, and they're trusted. We verify. You can't just sign up with Javita's ABC nonprofit and start using the program. We need to verify that you're, 501c3, or that if you're not, that you are an official and you're the person to be doing that. So we really work, because we don't just work with nonprofits. We work with the state government. We work with private companies. We work with all trusted resources and individuals to not just do emergency services licenses and verification, but to work with barbicide and hairdressing communities, contractors, architects, plumbers, everyone. And so, especially during COVID, we were able to help move those different positions throughout the US with their licensing. So with your new nonprofit, in all your spare time, Javita, that you just started up, because COVID is still with us, so everyone is seeking the outdoors. So what a great time to start up a nonprofit for you and your community. And one of the things that I would start to do is say, this is our list of volunteers who are going to do work. I'm going to get their name, much like all of you, name, address, email address, phone number. You would upload that into Merit, because now you have a database. Now, sometimes people write that on paper. Sometimes they'll use Excel. But sometimes if you start off in the beginning, and we work with other databases, so we're not trying to get rid of your legacy systems. We'll work with them so you can use ours and keep using what you do to make it easy for you. Got to get out there and save the earth. Upload all that information in. Now I know that Lauren is really good at planting trees, and that we're going to go to a community that maybe doesn't speak a certain language that Lauren speaks, but I'm going to track some of my volunteers who can speak additional languages. So, and that day, we're going to send them to go out and help with flood remediation or water removal. And these mixtures of skills and talents is really what we can help manage in our technology. You say technology and you think, like, what does that really do? But we need that now. You need that in an instant. So when you're out there in the woods, if you're a nonprofit, if you're out there planting, if you're out there giving food, if you're out there collecting donations, if you're setting up a COVID testing center, right now, a lot of CARES Act funding is available. Collier County just received almost $50 million in CARES Act funds for nonprofits. Those nonprofits have a chance to compete for that fund, but they have requirements. They have to be a 501c3. You've got to have paid your taxes. You have to have a board of directors, and then a list this long of other requirements to compete for that. Sometimes that's too much. And then you lose out on an opportunity for some amazing nonprofits who need that money that might not have gotten it because of maybe a little bureaucratic blip. I want us to use Merit to get rid of those things. I want us to use Merit to track what are we missing as a nonprofit to be the strongest foundation. So when these financial opportunities come through, it's a little easier. No grants are easy to compete with. But again, if I would say to your new nonprofit, you can use Merit to track your team's talents, their credentials, their certifications. You can use it to track check-in. It's called Merit Check-in. I arrived on scene, click on my phone, here I am. I put in some amazing volunteer service hours, and I'm leaving for the day. It also helps with accountability, because you know who's gone and who's still there. Maybe Lauren misbehaved the last time she was over there, most likely, let's be honest, and you don't want me to come back again. When Lauren goes to check in, you're going to have a little thing in there that says, hey, Lauren, we, no, that it's not your time to come back yet. We need you to hang out a little bit more, or go get this other credential. And then once you have that certification, I can check in. So you can use the system to help track people that way. And I think that's very important right now with background checks. I think it's very important with our society and our culture and some of the individual perceptions people have on different communities to say, look, it's either serving everybody, or you might not be the one for our agency to come out and represent with us. And so by putting parameters in place that are easy, advanced, and can be done in an instant and are live. So if you have a volunteer that maybe shouldn't be welcome back anymore, you can change their status right away and invite them to come back on a different day or point them in a different direction, what really might help serve their perceptions or their need for their individualism. So merit is, we have our handle, earn merits. So we ask people that are using our program to get out there and tag us or promote us. It's a chance to be part of something and build it together. So I always looked at, you're not alone. You have a company like us. People often ask us, what does the product cost? I like to say that up front. Anyone who's on this call today, it would be free to you. So it's a good price. And people say that we don't believe you, Lauren, and that's fair. We always talk about that in the company too. Like, no one thinks free is right, and you're right. But our basic platform systems, merit opportunities, merit check-in, merit credentialing, there's no cost for that. So we have folks right now at National CERT Association, even Volunteer Florida, we've partnered together before. No cost to you. Now we have to pay the bills. So when you get to that level of integration, working with things, that's when we discuss, how can we use a grant to support us? How can we do this? Because we are nothing without our service organizations, and our platform is not built just on technology. It's built on the humans that serve. So we need you, and we hope you need us as well.
Great. No, thank you so much for that, Lauren. I appreciate it. And then, of course, the more organizations within a community that have the merit system, then the more people, as they volunteer in different spaces, have a more collective kind of transcript or history. So they go to Joy's Joy organization, and they've got tracking there because Joy has used merit. So, as a community begins to use it more, it benefits everybody because the information is flowing and connected. So I just love so many components of the work that you all are doing.
Our stack of any one of us who's been in emergency services for even 6 months to a year to most people, which is 15, 20 years, our ICS training stack is this big. We have more credentials and pieces of paper, and some of us in Florida use the amazing CERT tracking system with the state, but then we also have the FEMA Emergency Management Institute tracking. We also have some of the wildland programs. So each one of us that's in this service business and emergency services and all nonprofit services has many different credentialing that we get, all these different umbrellas. And so what we're trying to do is just say, let's make this a little easier so we don't have to hunt and peck, and we can at least just get back to serving others and leave the paperwork to be a little bit less.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Lauren. That's great. Great way to explain it. And thank you for taking my ABC organization. I have just sunset it, removed my articles of incorporation, and you won't be able to find me on the IRS site anymore. I'm very sorry. Didn't work out. Thank you so much for explaining that. That was really helpful. Joy, I want to come back to you. I think it'd be really helpful for our participants to hear some of the challenges that you've had as you have worked with nonprofits, whether it is trying to brainstorm new ideas with them, whether it's how they've actually treated or interacted with the students. But, what are some of those challenges that have resulted in maybe your suggestions of best practices for nonprofits in the community so that all of this can be kind of taken to a better, more win-win kind of space? And I know you have, all your nonprofits are incredible, but I know you also have experienced other ways in which maybe they could look at things a little differently. So I think that might be helpful for us to hear about.
Sure. I'm trying to think of where to start. I think I'll start with sort of our current state with the pandemic, and part of what has been interesting during sort of this period of transition, particularly from when our university closed down in sort of like mid-spring and through getting prepared for the fall semester, was just even for us, right, like trying to think about what is the pivot, right? Like, what is the shift? Because the reality, right, is that the only way that we have ever worked is face-to-face for all of us. Like, we have not we have not done engagement work really in a virtual space. We have seen over the last several years in our mentoring world that e-mentoring has kind of picked up steam, but really outside of that, all of our work was face to face. And so, um, as we were trying to pivot, also working with our nonprofits who were also trying to figure out how to pivot, and the reality for some of them of not really being able to pivot at all or quickly. And so that was some of the challenge, is just allowing not only for ourselves but our partners the space to grieve what was, right? Because that's real. Um, while also thinking about what is possible, right? What we call the what could be, right? Like for the future. And so what we found for some of our partners is they were in different spaces. We had some folks that were really ready to talk about and think about what could be. And so we were having conversations about what does it mean to have students do specific projects, right? Like to have what we call project-based service learning or project-based work. Helping organizations think about, what was on your wish list that you always said that if I had more staff, I could do this, that we could maybe put a team of students on, or I could work with a faculty member to have a class work on to help move that project. One of the things that we have been able to kind of pivot with our students this year is around advocacy work and support. And so for some of our nonprofits who did significant face-to-face work, what does it mean to have students help you with the advocacy piece? Is there legislation they can research? Are there policy memos they can put together to make your work easier so that you're not having to do that research, but it makes it easier for you to go to the city and county commission, right? Like to make a case for additional resources for X, Y, and Z. And so that is sort of where we have found ourselves in this current space, and trying to help with the shift. And that's hard because that means that you're having to think differently about this thing that you've always done the same way. And so for some of our organizations, they have only had college students do this one thing for 5 million years. Right? And so there wasn't a need to think about college students doing these other things because college students have always done this one thing, right? And so having to be in conversation with them about, well, they don't always have to do this one thing, right? Like our students have a lot of skills. And so what are other things that they could be doing? Could they be talking with parents to help them walk through what does it mean to navigate through Zoom or Canvas? Can they work with teachers to set up their websites? Can they, right? Like those things, and trying to have those conversations. And so that's sort of where we are now, even as we are planning now for our spring semester. And what does it look like to provide some opportunities for our students? I think where we have spent the most time in working with our nonprofits is that, fair or not, there are lots of thoughts about college students and their level of commitment, their desire to be of service. And what we have found sometimes is having to navigate with our organizations through the assumptions and the biases that they have about college students, right? I think the hardest thing, and I was just having a conversation with a colleague about this, is that particularly for our more traditionally aged college students, are 17, 18 to 21, 22. These are young people that are in the midst of trying to explore and understand what it means to be an adult and what that means for them, right? What that means for them outside of their family, what that means for their career, what that means for how they want to be in the world. That's a lot, right? Like that is not a small task. And so helping our partners to kind of understand that our students are going through this transition. For 17 years, they have been told that you are a child, you don't know anything. And then once they turn 18, you tell them you are an adult and you should know all the things in the world. And that isn't true. Like I didn't know all the things in the world. I probably thought I did. Right, but I didn't. And so we really work with our partners to try to help them understand it is in our field is what we call the student development theory, and that our college students are going through these stages of development. And so working with our partners to understand that our students are in this place of learning and growing. And so we are here to help them through that, and help you navigate through that as well, as best as we can. And so there have been conversations that I have had to have with some of our partners, whether it is a school administrator, whether it is an executive director, who maybe has made some assumptions about our students. And then I've had to just sit and be in conversation with them about, okay, so what is the concern? Help me understand where this is coming from. But what I can also tell you is that this student is their first time away from home. They are from the Northeast. We are trying to help them process through that transition, in addition to being in college, in addition to being the only person in the space that looks like them, in addition to, right, to help provide some of that other context that they may not have about our students. And then, and fortunately, when we're able to have those conversations, we're then given the trust to support our students, because they know, right, that I'm not going to send you a student that's not going to be helpful. Like, that's just, I will move them someplace else first. And our partners know that about me. They know that Joy will pull a student fast if that is what, if that's what I need to do. But it has allowed us to be able to work and support our students and then support our nonprofits to have a better understanding of college student development and what that development means for them, and then how we can create a space where the two can work well together. And fortunately, we've had a lot of success in that. We've had organizations where one student in particular I can think about, they did not want the student. They felt like the student had a lot of assumptions and biases about their community, about their work. We were able to kind of talk through that. I was able to support the student. By the end of the year, the student was their volunteer of the year. The young people that they worked with loved the students. They want the students to come back the next year. Like, right. And so by being upfront about that, and because we talk with our nonprofits all the time, it allows us to be in those conversations to help develop something that really is beneficial for the nonprofit and for the students.
That's huge. Thank you so much for that. And that's, there's so much to that for any population. I mean, that's why we had volunteerism and mental health support yesterday, because you have people who may be coming in with mental health concerns, and there are ways in which you can be sensitive or respectful to that will be beneficial for you as well as the organization. Same thing with college kids, same things with kind of varying generations of people. We're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion, just really, it really does come down to people and relationships, and being able to convey that, help with the kind of valve on those relationships like you're doing, so that it can be, the steam can roll out a little bit if it needs to be, or there could be a little bit of like encouragement to keep the ball rolling, and so that kind of perspective, I think, is just so really critical. And you are, as you're saying, you're solidifying service as this critical component or key component of that student's life in terms of who they want to be. That service becomes a part of who they want to be during that kind of developmental time. And Joy, just so everybody knows, obviously not necessarily the exact name, but service learning is a pretty well-established, incorporated component of at least our state university system, and probably state colleges as well. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the interesting things that we've seen during this time, particularly because I talked to you a little bit about our office, all the work we've been doing this summer around social justice and race and equity, that we have started to see more faculty sort of come to us interested in this conversation around equity and community, being interested in sort of integrating community work as part of their courses. How do we do that in a way that is equitable? And so that is exciting during this crazy time. That is a really exciting thing that we're starting to see, as faculty being more interested in those conversations, and our nonprofits being more interested in those conversations around equity and inclusion as well.
That's great. So we know those of you who are participating are in all areas of the state, but we know you probably have a state college or one of our universities in your vicinity. And if you have tried, we want you to try again and connect with those service learning programs. Sometimes they're in student activity centers or departments. They're in varying spots, right, Joy, within
Yes.
institutions, but they're there. These are Joy's colleagues, ultimately, the kinds of things she's talking about. Obviously, the programs probably vary some in terms of how robust they are. But these general kernels that Joy is sharing, that is what service learning is. It is not, a single college student answering a post that you have, but there's just all of these layers that she's sharing, this richness that could be really beneficial to you. And just real quickly, I worked with a college student who he loved to wear pajamas. And I do recall that being something that, this is a previous job that I was in, but he was 19, he wore pajamas into the office. And it took a couple days of really talking through what professional wear was to get him to a place of coming in every day. The trade-off was the guy was the most extraordinary graphic designer I have ever come in contact with, and was able to create in these, we just had these different, his giftings were there. There were some of the professional components weren't there yet. He does school in his pajamas. He walks around campus in his pajamas. So why not walk into a workplace in his pajamas, but then we were just thinking to ourselves, we've been pulling our hair out over this particular design and what to do in this web project. And he comes in and in a few days had given us these options that were like, blew our minds. So just that there's just so many, and that's just a tiny example, but just so many different trade-offs and plenty of students who come in looking far better than I do for work. So I don't mean it like that. But that, there are just so many ways that we can be learning and growing from each other, even in the midst of something like that overly simplistic example. So real quickly, Pavita, I know there was a question, but I'd love for you to share what the question was and then kind of what you all, what it looks like for you all. And then I'll have another question for you.
Sure, absolutely. So the question was for our events, how I mentioned that we typically make sure that our employees have gloves and water and other safety supplies. Are those typically supplied by our company? Do we have a budget for that as a business? And the answer to that is yes. For our company-sponsored events, we do have a small budget set aside each year to support our volunteerism or our volunteers who are in our community. For our company, again, our company-sponsored events, for the events that our employees choose to do, if they do a Teams event, many times they'll work with us as well if they need water. There's an extended event, for example, or gloves or safety goggles or anything like that. We'll many times work with them to make sure that they have the supplies needed also. There are times when special equipment is needed, and that could be a little bit trickier, where we'll go to our resource pool to see who may have those materials. Sometimes we'll work directly with the nonprofits for specific equipment like hand tools and things like that. But typically we try to equip our volunteers with what they will need to be successful. Oh, I think you may be on mute still, Shavita.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm so used to interrupting and people I'm just kidding. Mute buttons are probably good for somebody like me. I am just so thrilled that all of you have been here. I really could not believe that I can't believe it's 9:58 already. Because I feel like there are just so many things that we could have conversations about. But, overall, just you all are coming from these really, I think, unique spots in the volunteerism kind of landscape. And, for all of you, the communication component and the relationship component are just so critical. And, I hope everybody hears that and also hears just how all of the different corners of where volunteers are making an impact as well as, like with you, Lauren, the ways that there are just so many new and really cutting edge ways to kind of consolidate the data that you have in your organization, help streamline it in ways that can really be beneficial. We all are limited on our time and energy. Again, I just want to thank each of you, Lauren, Joy, and Pavita, for being here this morning, for sharing with us your experiences. They are just really encouraging, the work that you all are doing. And I hope that you all who attended have enjoyed our roundtable. Tomorrow morning at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Natalie Paquin, who is the CEO of the Points of Light Foundation. And we are so excited to have her. So have a wonderful rest of the morning. You attendees who will be in some of our sessions, we hope that you just learn a lot from the content. And many thank you to our many thanks to our panelists. We really appreciate you all taking the time doing this.
No, thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Keep making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.